Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible transformations in all of human biology. Seriously, we're going to take a journey to understand how a fetus lives, how it gets oxygen, and how it thrives inside the womb, all before taking its very first breath. It is an absolute marvel of natural engineering.
So let's start with the central question, right? The big mystery we're going to solve. How on earth does a baby breathe before it's born? I mean, it seems impossible, doesn't it? How can you breathe when you're completely surrounded by fluid? Well, the answer is this incredibly elegant system that's totally different from our own.
Okay, so before we jump into the solution, we first need to really wrap our heads around the problem. The environment a fetus lives in presents this really unique challenge that, honestly, requires a completely different blueprint for survival.
And here's the most crucial point. The fetus is basically living underwater. It's floating in amniotic fluid. Now, its lungs are developing, for sure, but they are filled with fluid. They're completely non-functional when it comes to breathing. They provide zero oxygen. So right off the bat, some other system has to do all the heavy lifting.
This is where the sheer genius of fetal circulation comes into play. I want you to think of it like a biological superhighway, packed with shortcuts and bypasses, all perfectly designed to deliver exactly what's needed to where it's needed most as fast as possible.
And the hub of this entire superhighway? It's the placenta. This thing is the fetus's external lung, its kitchen, and its waste disposal unit, all rolled into one amazing organ. It's the critical link to the mother, and it's where all the oxygen and nutrients are coming from.
Okay, now this is where things get a little weird, a little counterintuitive. In our adult bodies, we learn that red arteries carry the good, oxygen-rich blood, and blue veins carry the oxygen-poor blood back. Well, in the umbilical cord, you gotta flip that in your head. It's the complete opposite. The umbilical arteries carry deoxygenated blood and waste away from the fetus, while the single umbilical vein, that's the lifeline, delivering all the fresh oxygenated blood to the fetus.
So, this precious, oxygen-rich blood enters the fetus. What happens next? We hit the first of three incredible shortcuts. It's called the Ductus Venosus. It's a shunt that lets a big chunk of that highly oxygenated blood completely bypass the fetal liver, which, isn't super active yet. This is all about speed, getting that precious cargo to the heart, and, most importantly, the brain, way faster.
Once that blood gets to the heart, it finds the second shortcut, the Foramen Ovale. This is basically a small trap door between the heart's two upper chambers, the right and left atria. It allows the best, most oxygenated blood to flow directly over to the left side of the heart. And from there, it gets pumped straight to the most important, most demanding developing organ, the brain. And now for our final shortcut, the Ductus Arteriosus. This is a blood vessel that connects the pulmonary artery directly to the aorta. Now think about it. Since the lungs aren't breathing air, there's really no point in sending a bunch of blood there. So this shunt lets that blood bypass the useless lungs and go straight into the systemic circulation, which is the network that supplies the rest of the body. Pretty clever, right?
So we've got this incredible system of plumbing and shunts. But there's another huge piece to this puzzle. A fetus actually operates in a very, very low oxygen environment. So, how does it manage to pull enough oxygen from the mother's blood to not just survive, but grow? Well, it has a secret weapon.
And this just perfectly illustrates the challenge. A fetus is thriving on a surprisingly tiny amount of oxygen compared to an adult. Look at that difference. It's a fundamentally low oxygen world in there. To make this work, the fetus needs a special adaptation to be unbelievably efficient with every molecule it gets.
And that special adaptation is fetal hemoglobin, or HbF. It's a special version of the molecule that carries oxygen in our blood. See how it has gamma subunits instead of beta? That tiny little tweak in its structure gives it a much higher affinity for oxygen. Think of it like a powerful oxygen magnet. It can literally rip oxygen molecules away from the mother's hemoglobin in the placenta, making sure the fetus gets every last bit it needs.
And this chart really just drives the point home. The oxygen pressure in an adult's blood is sitting around 13 kilopascals, while a fetus is just fine at only 4. That's less than a third. This massive gap is bridged entirely by the amazing efficiency of that fetal hemoglobin. It is a master at grabbing and holding on to every single oxygen molecule it can find.
So we have this perfect, intricate system, beautifully designed for life inside the womb. But what happens at the moment of birth? Well, this is the climax of our story. It's a dramatic, rapid-fire cascade of changes that completely rewires the entire system in a matter of moments. It is an incredible chain reaction. The baby's first breath floods the lungs with air, which causes the blood vessels in there to spring wide open. All of a sudden, blood rushes into the lungs and the pressure on the right side of the heart just plummets. At the same time, the umbilical cord is cut, stopping the blood flow from the placenta. This makes the pressure on the left side of the heart shoot way up. This new pressure difference, high on the left, low on the right, slams that little trap door, the Foramen Ovale, shut for good. The whole system reroutes, and within a couple of days, the Ductus Arteriosus closes up too. Just like that, a brand new circulatory system is born.
And what's so fascinating to me is that these structures, these shunts and bypasses, they don't just vanish into thin air. They actually leave behind permanent echoes in our adult anatomy. The Foramen Ovale becomes a little depression called the fossa ovalis. The Ductus Arteriosus and Ductus Venosus harden into ligaments. They are lifelong reminders of our aquatic past, right there inside all of us.
Now, this unbelievable transition happens perfectly almost every single time. But what happens when it doesn't? Let's take a quick look at what happens when some of these special fetal passages fail to close after birth. Well, if that ductus arteriosus stays open, it's called a patent ductus arteriosus, or a PDA. It's more common in premature babies and can be linked to things like a rubella infection during pregnancy. Doctors can often diagnose it just by listening for a very specific sound, a continuous machinery murmur. And while many are harmless, the bigger ones can cause issues and might need to be closed. Now for a really surprising fact. You remember that little trapdoor, the Foramen Ovale? Get this, in up to 20%, that's 1 in every 5 of healthy adults, it never fully seals shut. This is called a patent Foramen Ovale, or PFO. And for the vast majority of people, it causes absolutely zero problems. They never even know they have it. But in some cases, a larger opening can lead to health issues that might require a procedure to close it. It's a living piece of our fetal past that 1 in 5 of us is just walking around with right now. So, the next time you think about the beginning of life, remember this amazing temporary plumbing system. A series of brilliant shortcuts, a super-powered hemoglobin, and a dramatic split-second switchover at birth. This incredible transformation happens perfectly, millions of times a day all over the world. It really makes you wonder what other biological marvels are just hiding in plain sight all around us.